and just to thank the witnesses for coming before us today. Also, I think what we've seen over the past week is the worst of RTE and the best of RTE. The worst in terms of the revelations and, quite frankly, the way they have been handled. And I think the best of RTE in the way in which your journalists have held you to account in the way that they do us. So that's an important thing to get on the record. I think from people that I've spoken to in RTE, they're absolutely disgusted. And I don't want to layer that on. They really are disappointed. They're furious and they're angry. And people that I spoke to today are angry with your statement, Adrian, of yesterday. The Taoiseach made it very clear in the Dáil that the government don't believe you. I think his exact words, we do not believe that the former DG was the only person with knowledge of these events. That's in direct response to your statement. So I'll go through my preamble and happy to hear it. That's pretty serious. If RTE on the one hand are trying to fight for survival, you need the government on board for that. You need the public on board. And if you think, it's hard to know what your strategy is, but it seems to me to be give as little as you can until you have to. That's not going to wash. It's not washing with the public, it's not washing with the government, and it's damaging, and it continues the damage to the organisation and to the staff that you work with and represent and attempt to lead. And here's one thing that Mr. Lynch, I need you to try to help me to understand. And it's this issue about you're placing everything on the fact that you didn't know the commercial arrangement was underwritten, so therefore there's no culpability. But the very fact that a commercial arrangement had to be put in place that was effectively paid for by RTE is an acceptance that money was being funneled to an individual. Now, surely to God somebody had to say, why is that being done? Why are we doing a commercial arrangement? Why are we doing anything other than paying the individual? Did a great deal. A lot of your statement yesterday sets out very clearly why you thought you had to pay the person. It's legal, contract, yeah. And then the side deal, the tripartite agreement. Surely to God it was clear that that was an exercise in funneling money to the individual, ultimately allowing for a concealment. Why else would you do it? Why would you deviate to another methodology?
Yeah, just to explain that, so when the Taoiseach mentions events, so specifically what the statement said was what was published. So what was it that impacted what was published? What that was, as I said before, the guarantee was a commercial decision which came with risk, but it meant when that risk was activated, it then impacted the figures that were published. So in terms of your follow-on question, which is around events, there's no one is sitting here and saying that any of this is good practice. Let me be absolutely clear about that. So,
just can I ask you, why do you think, and just reflect on it now from this vantage point, why do you think the commercial arrangement had to be put in place? What did you think was going on at the time?
Yeah, so when I saw this in early January, when I was copying that email, and my understanding at that point was that there were commercial partners who were interested in activating something with Ryan Tubridy. And my assumption was that unless there was an agreement in place, he would not be paid.
Did you not think that it was an effort to conceal? Did it not occur to anybody? Why would you be going down a particular pathway with one individual?
So I think that these were going to be, my understanding of it was, what I saw was 3 events, that they were going to be public events. So there was going to be no concealing anything. What happened?
But for what purpose? This wasn't Reynolds coming, or this wasn't somebody coming, we'd like to latch on to this star for our benefit and we'll talk to you about it. This was RTE actively looking for something that they were going to pay for.
Yeah.
Not alone were you paying the company the money to pass it, to funnel it to Mr. Tubridy, you were also funding the organisation of the event. Now, surely to God, somebody would say, there's no benefit in that to RTE. Zero, absolutely no benefit. So why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Did that not occur to you? Or
So-
to anyone, and obviously to the head of content as well. Surely there had to be questions there.
Yeah, so
I have some sympathy for Miss O'Leary because, quite frankly, I
Yeah.
think she was asked to do something. She was asked to go hunting for somebody. Would you be prepared to participate with us? I'd like to hear from Reynold, because it seems to me, and this has been sort of part of the content of what's coming back, that, well, they decided not to continue with it the following year, and we were left on the hook, and we never expected to be, and that's why we underwrote it, and that's yada yada.
yeah.
Sorry,
The truth of it is, the whole thing was concocted. This was a straw hut that was built to funnel money to an individual that you can only conclude at best was about concealment. And until somebody comes out and addresses the kernel of this, which is what or why was this put together in the first instance, and how can it not be construed as concealment? Legal,
Yeah.
but concealed based on the way you put your reporting together. Like, in going through your statement yesterday, you make it clear that when it comes to putting the top 10 list together, there's checks and balances in there. But the director of content sits on that. I don't know who else sits on it, but others do in concert with, or consultation with the DG. Like, they had to know there was this ideal, the tripartite deal. It didn't appear.
So in terms of that, Deputy, just to answer that question, I've no doubt that there was a negotiation going on in the autumn of 2019. The negotiation was obviously not going that well or whatever, and then there was this idea, just let me finish, this obviously was generated, that there would be some brand extensions and there would be events. My understanding, when I saw it in January, was that these would be events that would be paid for by a sponsor. So it would be a legitimate agreement, and we all know it's a lawful agreement, if you activate them, Ryan Tuber will be paid. So the idea of that commercial agreement was not about concealing payments to Ryan Tuberty. Concealed payments only occurred when the guarantee was activated.
But the first iteration of it activated a payment from RTE, because at least my reading of it is that it was cost neutral.
Just to clarify on that, I mean, in terms of, as I said before, the cost neutrality or the operationalisation of this, I knew nothing about. So I didn't know that.
Okay, I'll move on very quickly. You said that the contract was concluded with Mr. Tuberty in May, that he now has a new contract and it's suspended. I think you said somebody said he was in contract or out of contract. Can you just clarify? He's still being paid anyway, so can you just clarify what the situation is?
Yeah, so his contract for television and radio services ended on May the 31st. A new radio contract was under negotiation. That has now been suspended.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just very briefly to Ms. Neil, you were with the Minister some day last week. Would you have shared with the Minister at that stage that you had sought the resignation of the DG?
Sorry, do you mean last Saturday? Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Okay.
No.
That's okay.